Welcome back to Vic Akers Wonderland, Road to Stadium Australia. We are back again, and we're down to the final 8. We've also got Noel Marritz, Leah Volti, and Katrine Mollakul on their way home for qualifying for the Champions League football. So if you're an Arsenal fan, like we are, we're very, very happy. Speaking of we, I've also got my partners in crimes, my co-hosts with me as usual for this pod. Matt, how are you?
Help if I actually stopped putting the mute button on. I think also Ian Hardson morning would also be feeling a bit gutted about everything, but I'm kind of glad for the 2-day break, if I'm honest. Kind of needed, kind of a little bit of reset. Really looking forward to tonight because we get to talk about the last 16. It's been very eventful and it has been very, very problematic across the board.
No, absolutely. There's been absolutely juicy fixtures and the drama just doesn't stop. And last but not least, the person who winds me most up on this pod, drives me absolutely crazy, made me bite his head off on the Lionesses podcast about Rachel Daly. It is Adam. Adam, how are you?
Oh, I'm in a malicious mood for more stirring, if you don't mind. After getting you on the last pod and Matt on the England one, I'm looking forward to what crazy takes I can stir the pot. No, really enjoyed the last 16. Lot of drama, a lot of sort of pick apart, and it's getting to the crunch now. You know, half the teams have gone, half remaining. The World Cup is very quickly coming towards its end. And obviously with less games, it means hopefully we won't be going into the dead of night talking about the games, which is quite nice because I do like my sleep. But yeah, much looking forward to picking apart these games. Quite a few talking points, I suspect.
Absolutely. For our first half, it's got to be Switzerland and Spain. Adam, I hate to tell you so, but I told you so. There was going to be goals from Spain.
Yeah.
Switzerland were meant to be defensively sound. I'm not too sure what happened because Atana Bonmati, she came straight in there within 5 minutes. Alba Redondo took the right foot shot within the close range, but it was scooped out by Nadine Ryson. And it went straight back to Alba Redondo, who then back passes it over to Tanya Bonmati, and she takes her left-footed shot from the centre of box into the bottom right corner. Adam, you said that Switzerland were defensively solid.
Well,
when has it effectively gone wrong?
In my defence, I did say this. I said if Spain score early, you can check back the pod. I'm pretty sure I said if Spain score early, it will be a landslide. But I suspected, I hoped, particularly that wouldn't happen. That Switzerland would have a defensive now. So they've got the likes of Leah Volti, Noel Marritz, as we know from our time at Arsenal. So I expected them to be more skilled back. It wasn't to be. Spain were just on it, and this was the Spain that we saw against Zambia in the group. This wasn't the Spain that got trounced by Japan. I think the problem with Switzerland is they're just what's the best to describe it? They're just like a group of 11 players. There's nothing there. It's just 11 players on a pitch. I mean, I'm sure they work hard and try hard, but there's no direction. There's no direction. There's no plan. There's no soul. It's just 11 people, 11 players who can play football at a very decent level. Whereas with Spain, there's a strategy, there's a way of playing, there's a very attacking way of playing. And I think Switzerland were just sort of there. And 5 minutes in, the moment Spain scored, you could still sense that there was nothing there for them, unfortunately. Which is a shame because obviously we love Leah Volti and Noel Marritz. We wanted the best for them, but yeah, they got lucky, Switzerland, because they were in a pretty. I think we can agree they were in quite a lucky group. I think it was the New Zealand group, which was because of the way the groups work, the fact New Zealand were a top seed when they're not a top seed team, it was top seed by host. You pretty much know that if you got into that group, you got a very good chance of getting out. And I think that's one of the reasons why Norway and Switzerland got out of that group. And as we're going to discuss, the moment they got into the knockout stages, they get rather found out.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was already suspect when Norway qualified the way they did. But we'll go back onto that a bit later. Matt, within another 6 minutes, there was an own goal by Kadina. She made it 1-1 with an absolute terrible back pass. Again, should that have been the wake-up call for Switzerland at that point? As the debutant, Katakol, she could do absolutely nothing about that. She wasn't going to save it.
I'm kind of questioning at that point why are you deciding to let your number 2 go in goal to start with? I'm not, goalkeepers union aside, if you're going to make a change in the tournament for goalkeeping wise, you make it in the group stages, because you might have a hard, medium, easy. Your hard game, you throw your number 1 in. Your easiest, or so-called easiest, say you're playing the Philippines or Vietnam, you throw in your third choice goalkeeper. So if that had been England, for example, you throw Hannah Hampton, Ali Roebuck again. Maybe you throw Ali Roebuck in against, say, China, and then for, say, if we played Nigeria, play Mary Apps, just so then all 3 of them have had appearances. They got that experience. If they need to be called upon at any time in the tournament, do it then. Don't do it in the last knockout round, unless you're going to do a Dutch and throw on the goalkeeper last minute of the game because they're a penalty shootout hero.
I was going to say, Matt. Sorry, Matt. I was just going to say with the goalkeeper, do you think maybe Vilda was reacting to the fact that they got battered 4-0 against Japan, and that was sort of him thinking, I need to change things. I'll change the goalkeeper, and maybe she won't concede 4 goals against Switzerland, and maybe he was overthinking in that regard.
I think maybe as well. Maybe he just did overthink it as well, because they made a few changes as well from memory. But it's just almost like it's unset rules of how you do football, and you don't change your goalkeeper very often, or if you do change it, just make sure those changes done early. Or as I said, if it's a penalty shootout and you got a penalty saver on your team, pick them as your last sub. But that whole pass, it was a good pass. It just seems like there was no communication about what was going on. She didn't need to play it back to the goalkeeper. She could have quite easily passed it off to either player on the side, or to keep that momentum. There was no pressure at that time. But when you see Switzerland celebrating that goal, they've all grouping together, and you're thinking, what's going on? Why are they grouping that together? What are they? Why do they need to be rallied in this early? As Adam has mentioned, this group have some talented players. You've got players like Sena Gorsevic playing at Barcelona. You've got Leah Volti and Noel Meritz playing at Arsenal. You've got other players. I think Hum's playing for Lyon at the moment. You've got some fantastic players that are playing at the top level, but for whatever reason, it's not worked. And that's 2 tournaments in a row where they could have considered themselves lucky to have not. One of them they could have quite easily gone through. The other one they didn't. Now this time around they've gone through just due to them having a bit of a superior, not superior, a better defense compared to the rest. It's just one of those things where you're defensively sound, but you haven't got everything else across the board. So something needs to change, and whether it's the Swiss FA decide to step up and say, look, this is what needs to happen. Maybe they'll inquire, maybe they'll talk to the manager, they'll talk to the players as well, and make a decision, because that's not good enough. And the fact of the matter is, this is the second time now that they've also qualified via playoffs.
Was it against Wales? Was it that late win against Wales?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other time was for the Euros, and they did that via penalties. It's not a telling story. And if it was, say, say a team like Wales, for example, it would be great story development. But for
Yeah.
a team like Switzerland, the next host of the European Championships, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, it's a telling sign that you're not ready to host because
Well, that's a bit hard because if you look at New Zealand, I mean, they gave it all. I could easily see Switzerland being in a group at a tournament and maybe get, not saying they're going to top the group, but they could get out of a group depending on the draw. If they get a bit lucky. I mean, New Zealand, we saw the crowd factor. They actually got a win against Norway, but they wouldn't win it. They wouldn't win the host. They wouldn't win a host tournament. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, but again, it's a little bit different when you're a host.
Yeah,
I mean, look at
exactly.
Australia, look at England last summer. We know what it's like to be that 12th player on that pitch. So that could be the motivation, but I feel like things need to drastically change for Switzerland.
there's
I'm not
something
seeing
you
goal
quite
scorers,
not
and
there.
it's kind of scary.
It's hollow. It's a hollow side. You tap on it. There's nothing in there. Yeah.
Maybe that's going to be the difference, is that in 4 years they're going to find a youngster within that will be able to be that playmaker that they're missing.
Absolutely. Or they could be inspiring one right now.
Yeah.
The World Cup could be inspiring that player right now. We just don't know.
I do want a quick tap on own goal because there's another own goal coming up in another game, and it's been quite a few. We said in the Italy game, the South African, that was probably one of the own goals of the tournament. This probably tops it. But it also reminded me, and this is a flashback to Euro 2020/21. If you ever watched the Spain-Croatia game that finished 5-3, it was a bonkers game. The opening goal came when a Spanish player passed back by the halfway line under the Spanish goalkeeper's foot and into the back of the net to give Croatia a lead. And it's pretty much like that. It's a blind back pass. And I thought, well, I was thinking, they're channeling their men's team there by giving Switzerland a chance. I thought it was very charitable of them. Thankfully, as we'll discuss, it wasn't critical to the result, and I think there was a bit of retribution for the defender later. They're able to sort of counter that. But yeah,
absolutely.
It was a
we will come on to that in a minute.
Just before we do move on from that, just the own goal itself, I'm thankful that it was a 6 a.m. kickoff, because you would have probably had the men's haters out there that would have been, well, if that was in the men's game, that would be
hence my comment on Euro 2021. I would have just gone, see this, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You never want to mess with Adam when it comes to women's football.
No.
Let's have a counter argument.
There's plenty of those to go around.
The next two goals came quick and successive.
Yes.
After a missed header from Atana Bonmati this time around, Amber Redondo finally gets a goal after a fast reaction to the ball into the bottom left corner. And then the next one was at 36 minutes. Salma Parallelo crossed into Bonmati and makes that left-footed shot, and it goes into the bottom left corner again. I think at this point, I'm sitting here, I don't know how Switzerland have allowed all these crosses to run rampant across their box. It's actually insane. Like,
can we get a shout out there for
basics of the defending?
Can we get a shout out for Bonmati's footwork though? The way she shuffled that ball around and got it around the keeper, just mesmeric. I mean, she's an incredible player. But it was just every cross just was finding Spanish heads unchallenged. I mean, the next goal, I'm not even going to get again, but that one was just like it was. I want to say pretty sure defending. There was just no defending. It was almost if the Swiss just stopped playing. It was like 11 mannequins in the box, and the Swiss just had the Spanish just had to work the ball in. It was very, very bizarre that there was no challenging in the air. I'm wondering if maybe the early goal just completely knocked all the stuffing out, and they just realised we've got 85 minutes of Spanish passing around us, and I think maybe the confidence just drained out of them.
The thing is that's not the attitude we get from Mel Marrett, and that's what's confused me. She goes 1-0 down at Arsenal. You don't see that from her.
No, you don't.
You don't see that from Leo Volti either. Because we watch these players week in, week out. We know what to expect from these players when we go behind, but there was just nothing.
No.
There was a lot of pointing fingers at each other and telling each other off, though. I did notice that.
Maybe it's one of those things, though, that maybe they just don't get on together. There's no harmony. I think what Adam was saying earlier on, which is, again, one of the issues. If they are to host, they can't be pointing fingers. They can't be doing that in front of a home crowd. I just think Parello could be a shout for young player of the tournament, if I'm honest, because she has done really well. I know
Oh,
there
I'm
are
going to
other.
challenge you that later.
I,
I'm going to
I
challenge
know
you that.
I know there's going to be others, but if I was to put a player forward for that at the moment, she'll be in the top 3.
Yeah.
I think we know
Absolutely.
who yours is going to be on that number 1 spot, but
Actually got 2 on that spot. Actually, there's one
Yeah.
ahead of who you're thinking of. There's one
I-
ahead for me
I
at the
had
moment, and
one.
she is in the lead for the Golden Boot race at the moment, and we will come on to her in a sec.
Yeah, I had one, and then they got themselves sent off, so they've immediately fallen off. They've immediately fallen off my list. So there you go.
you won't be getting it now.
But I know Adam's been itching to talk about this next goal.
Yeah.
Another corner from Teresa Alabella in the box. It was a scramble for the ball. Falls to Leia Cordia for a close range tap in. What's this redemption, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. This was you need that when you score an own goal. You want to get something that says, I messed up, and this is the perfect way to sort of balance it out and get a goal of your own. I think a few times where it's happened. It doesn't happen often in football. The only other time I can sort of think of it, I think Vermaelen with the Arsenal had one in a 1-1 draw at Fulham, got a late equaliser out of it, and he sort of get that bit of redemption. But I mean, we talk about the defending. Yes, scored it, but the Swiss defence. I mean, it was less Swiss defence; it was more Swiss cheese. I mean, it was just the holes were everywhere. The players just do react. just like
Absolutely.
You see the ball come in, and the ball and it's just in amongst it's like pinball bumpers. When it's just bouncing around there. Just like somebody in the Swiss defence, just stick out a leg, kick it, do something, and they're just standing around, and it was almost if the Spanish players just swarmed on it and were just forced over the line. It was so bad to watch, and it was just basic defending, and it was just like someone just pulled the power cord out of the defence, and they were just completely, I don't know, rabbits in the headlights, frozen fear. I don't know what it was, but it's so bad to watch. And this is a team, as I said, I thought were defensively decent. I don't think they conceded a goal at all. Well, yes, okay, the group was the Philippines, Norway, and New Zealand, not the the big 3. But I thought they had an element of competition. But no, it was absolutely shambolic. I think that was 4. Was that 4-1? Was it at that point? Was that their 4th?
Yeah, that was their 4th, and it just came up to half time.
Yeah, and that point, they're gone.
So,
they're
what were you guys thinking at that point? Just out of curiosity, do you think it was going to be 6s and 7s, or maybe more?
Maybe no. I was thinking maybe 2 more. If I'm honest with you, from that point, purely because it was, as Adam said, it was Swiss cheese, loads of holes in it. It was just it was terrible, and it's evident in Jenny Hermoso's goal, which came in the 70th minute.
Oh, that was
a mistake from their right back. Jenny Hermoso just comes out of nowhere. She's got miles of room. She outpaces is it Mariam Turchin?
Yeah.
As she gets the ball, and she absolutely capitalizes on it ruthlessly, and it's just one of them classic Hermoso goals and what you expect to see from her.
Pings it in the bottom corner.
Absolutely, she might be out in the Mexican leagues, I should say, but she's still scoring goals for her country, and absolutely adore her technique. But Matt, I'm gonna have to ask you this question: what were your thoughts on Lia Volti's performance? Adam, you can have your Maris in a minute.
No. I want to watch Matt talk about his favourite player after I did trip him up on the England pod.
It's hard because it's almost like she was trying to do everything herself, and she can't do everything herself. She's not able to do that. She needs the players around her to be able to do their jobs properly. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what more she could have done. I don't know what any of those players were doing at times. It just felt like they just. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna use the analogy of Sunday League football here, because I know a lot of people go play Sunday League football. They usually go out drinking the Saturday night. They turn up. Half of them are drunk, and that was kind of what it felt like to me.
You think the Swiss had been on the sauce the night before and were a bit hungover?
No, just the analogy wise, like it was kind of like they'd forgotten how to pass because they kept on giving it away. They'd forgotten just simple things. And I think when Leah and Noel come back, they're going to rewatch that match, and they're just going to look and say, "What the hell?" what the heck
What
happened
happened?
here? I genuinely do not know. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Leah turned up this tournament as much as she usually does for Arsenal. She's usually the pace setter, the transition setter as well for Arsenal. It's sort of Kim Little's named her as one of her favourite players to play with as well. So let's not just forget that. Leah, a lot of the midfielders also say that as well. It's not just like Kim Little, captain of Arsenal, was saying that. She is up there as one of the best defensive midfield players that in the world, and for her to sort of fall apart, I genuinely don't know what to say.
I think there are a few things we can say around it. Obviously, Leah Volti she just coming back from an injury that she suffered at the end of the season.
That is true. Apologies, I forgot about that, Adam.
Very, and that was, and I mean, I think we all thought when we saw the injury that it was going to be out for a year. Thankfully, it wasn't. But she was coming back from that. I also feel with Leah Volti, the problem she's got is there is a definite quality drop off in the players around her in that team, and I think it does show. And we're going to talk about some other teams where that is the case. I'm thinking teams like, let's say, Denmark, where they have one really good player, but they're being brought down by the players around them. And I think for Leah Volti, it is a struggle for her to play the game she wants to play, because I don't think the other players can play at the level she wants to play at. And so maybe she has to sort of regress, you say, so she's almost aligned with them, and then obviously ruins her game. And let's not forget, they're playing Spain. I mean, Spain are no mugs. They're not an underdog team. They are a very, very, very good side with uber talented team. A team that is obviously not being coached properly,
do you know what's scary about them? They're not even operating in full capacity.
Oh no, it's
absolutely
everyone.
Because obviously of all the drama that's going on in the background of the FA.
Yeah.
Notice that Alexia's minutes have been a very she's very usually on around that 60th minute. Yeah. Now she's not playing from the start, but again, come back from ACL.
I'm surprised by that. I thought Georgia Vilda would be the kind of guy who would have actually been playing her 90 minutes. I'm amazed actually he's doing something rather competent and sort of bleeding her into fatigue. So even though they are playing basically with the handbrake on, with a limiter on because of who's managing them and how the team's being run, they're still able to do that, which makes them a very scary prospect. But I mean, I was,
with him, you saying him being competent, does it mean that he's actually listening to Barcelona on her recovery program?
Maybe as surprising enough, maybe he has actually listened, but maybe he needs to do a bit more of that if he to see what's the bigger picture. But as I think we know who what his links are with management upstairs. That's not going to change, and this is that's behind the scenes stuff is going to roll on for a while, and it is a shame that it's damaging probably one of the best teams we have on the continent. I would say better than England. I'll say now. I think if they were at full strength, they would beat England, Germany, France. No problem whatsoever.
I definitely think they'd teach the USA a lesson. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I think as we all come to, I think quite a few people can teach them.
Currently.
I mean, I think our Lioness team can show you can, play rubbish in a 0-0 game and still win on penalties. I mean, that's one thing we could teach at the start. But we'll get onto that in a bit.
Absolutely. That is it for this half. We will see you after the short break.
Unit's cross. Out comes Bindage. He hasn't got there. It's Jill Scott taking her time. Jess Clark! 2-1.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that little break even with the audio. Next game from Saturday afternoon. Oh, Saturday, I should say. Saturday morning, afternoon. I'm losing track here. It was Japan-Norway. Japan beat them 3-1. First 15 minutes, it was very much in control for Japan. As we expected, they haven't let a single goal in to this point. They haven't lost the game either. There was a really nice crossing from Hinata Miyazawa. And in an attempt to stop the ball, Ingrid Engelen, I can't pronounce her name, puts it in her own net. I just want both of your thoughts on this costly mistake and why Frida Leonardson Mon was benched by Hegerisa.
I think Adam's gonna. Adam, do you want to go first?
No, honestly, you take this one. I'll come in next.
I can understand it because Japan are very much they've got they are, I would say, the most versatile side in terms of systems and opportunities that they play. 1 minute it could be a 4-4-2, the next minute it could be 4-1-1, the next minute it could be a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1, and they're so flexible in the tactics that you don't know what you're going to be hit with until it's too late. I've heard that over in the past that originally this team was meant to be competing at its best at the Olympics, but they failed to meet that target. So they weren't expected to do as well as they have done so far.
But was that rumour, or was they really preparing for this World Cup? That is the question.
I have a feeling that
I have heard that as well. There was a sort of talk about when we had the 2019 World Cup. Obviously, it was a bit of underperformance, but the comment was around that. No, because we're building up to the Olympics in Japan, the home Olympics, home tournament. As we know, that didn't really work out for them either. Us and Canada, they got out of the group in the end. So I think there is an element of truth in that. I think they might have even moved the Manda on after that one. I can't quite remember, but there was talk about how they sort of wasted that time. But they are, as you say, man, they're making up for lost time now.
But just to put it out there, these sorts of things happen. Like it can't. You put a cross in, you think, right, okay, stick a foot out. Don't. The one thing you do not want to do is stick a knee out, because 9 times out of 10 that's going to deflect straight towards the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper's got nothing to do. Got nothing to do. Can't get to it in time because because either you've gone to dive one way or you're expecting the cross, so you're preparing yourself for the cross, and it's too late to shuffle across and make that save. Just in time. It was a bit of a bizarre moment. I don't think Japan were expecting to score that early. We've had a couple of these sort of early goals, haven't we? I think this was another one that was hit in the 6th minute. Mark.
It was 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, I apologise.
Yeah.
But it was one of those ones that it's just I feel a bit sorry, because she knows what she was doing. She just it's just come off the wrong body part and it's gone in. There's nothing you can really do. But I think whatever happened, Japan would have had a chance there. Whether it went in is another matter.
It was a brilliant cross to whip in. I mean, that's the pace and the trajectory. I mean, I think it has to step in because there are players behind her. I mean, she's played a bit of reputation. She's a defensive midfielder. Plays for Barcelona. She's actually relegated to the bench behind a certain Kira Walsh. And I struggle for game time, and then you see her out on the pitch, and unfortunately she's something like that. We were talking about own goals earlier, and this own goal and the one in the Spain game happened obviously the same day. This one gets relegated to second place, but it's I mean, from a striker's perspective, it's a brilliantly placed finish. And as someone who was flying the flag for Japan for this one, both because of how Japan played, but also because of the way Norway's being run, my worry was, and we'll get onto other goals in a minute, that Norway would unfairly win this one. But when that goal went in, I thought, right, excellent. Japan have been on top for the last 50 minutes. They've got the goal, brilliant. Let's get them going. Let's keep going. Obviously, it was a bit of a fluke, but deserved. It went a bit strange after that.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was. They were doing absolutely fine. But Norway weren't going to give up. They did get a cross in from Vilde-Bergerisa, over into Gura right in, centre of the box and top left corner. As WSL fans, this is nothing new to us, is it, boys?
It's not. I mean, and as Arsenal fans, we've seen Brighton pull this out so many times. It's one of the main reasons Chelsea won the league, because Brighton, let's be frank here, had a superb season for Chelsea. She's one of the main reasons they actually won the league. A brilliant player. And it was a really good move. It was a really good counter from the back, up along the wing, whipped cross. The header is majestic. It is absolutely, I mean, the power, she's quite way out, but the power to get to Emma direction into the top corner, it was a thing of beauty. And it was sort of, I was sort of fearing the worst thing, because I thought, this isn't fair. Japan's done so well. This is sort of a mugging on the counter. It's 1-1. And this is going to sort of legitimise the Hege Riise reign of Norway, and Norway are back. And I'm thinking, no, this can't happen. This is wrong.
No, absolutely not.
And it was a bit of a surprise. And I think maybe we took Japan back a bit as well, because I don't really think we saw much of them for the rest of the half.
No, I do think they looked really shaky after allowing that first goal of the tournament in.
Yeah,
They weren't too sure of themselves. They did lose a little bit control of the game. Matt, what did you think they looked? How did you think they fared after that first goal's gone in for the tournament?
Well, again, it goes back to what I was saying a bit earlier about the Olympics and things like that. It's almost like a brand new team, and because they were trying to sort of bring them in together, some of them have had that experience before. I'm going to forget the name. The captain, Kagawa. No, not Kagawa.
Kagawa.
Saki Kumagai.
Kumagai. Thank you. I was nowhere near. I do apologise.
Thinking of Yuri Hasegawa. That's what it
sounded
like.
That's probably
Man
what I
City's
was thinking of.
Yeah.
But
she was playing.
It was just one of those things there. I think Kumagai is actually, funnily enough, was one of the players that I was looking at and saying should be a perfect fit for Arsenal. She's now gone to Roma, but that's transfer story over. That's where you need your captain to step up and take advantage of this opportunity to sort of shout and scream a little bit, or just sort of give a telling to, or just nudge the player next to you and just say, "Come on, it's only 1-1. Let's go up the other end and try and score. If not, let's try and settle the nerves a little bit. Just get the passing, get the rhythm back, and then just go again. Get ready for that next." Well, we don't want to go 2-1 down. If you go 2-1 down, then it could be a mountain to climb. Norway could have easily scored a few more. With that dominance that they have for the next 10 minutes.
No, absolutely. I mean, thank God the halftime whistle came back. Yeah. I think Japan looked a little bit relieved to me. I've got to say that kit is beautiful. The away one from Adidas, absolutely superb again. But second half came around pretty quickly. In the 50th minute, pass from Junendo into Hinata Miyazawa, then on to Yui Hasegawa. Who's doubled up on as soon as she got her first touch, but she managed to get a back pass back to Hinata Miyazawa, but Vilda Boarisa does intercept and passes out wide.
Yeah.
However, Risa Shimizu intercepts and takes her right-footed shot from the centre of the box to the bottom right corner. Did Norway gift that goal to Japan, Adam?
100%. No, that's a defensive gaffe. Unfortunately, it is a mistake at the back, and player Boarisa should know better than that in that situation. I mean, if you're playing up the back, obviously you play it forward. If you're not, you're just ab it into row Z. But no, it was defensive suicide. It was not a pass back because it wasn't at the keeper. I'm not sure if it was simply that it deflected off her or there was a genuine attempt to pass the ball. But it was a complete defensive breakdown, and fair play to Shimizu. Spotted it, took the touch, rolled, and just knocked past the keeper, and it was sort of a justice restored. Japan had the lead back again; they were playing the better football, and Norway were again looking at a last 16 exit, which I think was warranted because I don't think they deserved to get out of the group. I think they're quite lucky to get out of the group, quite frankly. Japan had the lead back, and thankfully they were able to hold on to it this time. I think Norway had one or two chances because Risa had to bring on Liansen Mornem. I think she had a good shot. I think the other one was
Ada Hegerberg.
Hegerberg came on. No, it was I think it was how was it played? Yeah, Savik, I think it was, had a shot across goal.
Wasn't it Harvey?
Well, it might be Harvey. It might have been Harvey.
There was a few of them that came on. And
yeah,
but
this specific one, it was a straight through, and it just went wide. They were going to score. That would have been it for me. That
would have been 2-2. There was a sense of momentum building with Norway that and then obviously that rocket, which was set the keeper. And at that point, I'm starting to think, oh crikey, I know we're going to get a gel again. But as we'll get to. Japan, I wouldn't say this was Japan at their fluent best as we saw them early in the group stage, but they have that quality. There is quality oozing and flowing through this team. And I think you talk about formation. I think Matt, you mentioned this earlier. You talk about formations and tactics. Japan don't really have a formation. They just have this 11 players that they're like a conglomeration. It becomes a united animal, I would say. Just
They're
the way
just a
the
solid
partners
unit.
they're
for
a
me.
unit, but they just flow and move and interchange, and they have turned this football into an art. It's amazing to watch, and they put together, I think, a piece of football beauty to kill the game, as I'm sure Lottie's going to get to now.
You know what it does remind me of? Sorry, just quickly, Lottie.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when Jonas decides to move to, say, like 3 at the back and swaps Caitlin Ford and Beth Mead over, and just to sort of cause more chaos, especially when it's at the Emirates.
We see that on a regular basis with the Lionesses, and well, obviously Jonas has been watching. If we can get Caitlin Ford to play on the opposite side with Beth, we'll be fine. Got no worries about Kate McCabe if they start doing the switch, but it's Caitlin Ford. I'm afraid. As much as I adore her, I think she's brilliant. She just can't play on Beth Mead's side of the pitch.
Yeah.
She needs to stick on the left with Steph Catley.
She can't play centrally either. She's not a centre forward.
Exactly. But it's definitely something to work on. But 81st minute, Ayoba Fujino collects the ball from the back line, picks up a long-range pass through to Hinata Mizawa, who is left in acres of space, quite literally. She outpaced the Belge, have I pronounced that right?
Yeah.
For one with Aurora one-on-one with Aurora Mickelson, takes her left foot, shoots to the centre of the box, and it goes in the right-hand corner. I mean, surely Mickelson would have seen that coming from that distance.
Maren Mjelde, I think, is a player you're thinking of, the Chelsea defender.
No, it's there. I've double-checked the footage and I've checked the shirt.
Sorry, Bielda. Sorry, you got Mjelde and Bielda.
Yes, Bielda. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to pronounce that. I know I've just butchered it about 3 or 4 times.
The pass from Fujino is absolutely supreme. And it's when you saw the move happening, and I could see, let me get the name up quickly, Miyazawa on the shoulder of a defender, and you're just thinking, get the pass in. If you get the pass and you get the weight right, it will land on. And I don't think she even has to take a touch. I think she meets it. She has the ball. It's one of those things. The striker has the ball under her control, but without even touching it. The ball has just died as she's reached to it, and you just know at that moment she's a clear defence. She doesn't need to take a touch because it's already under her spell, even though she hasn't touched it. And then it's just so simple, just one touch, stroke it past the keeper, bottom corner. It was a brilliant way to kill the game, because at that moment Norway had done 3-1. 10 minutes to go. They had a bit of momentum, and Japan had just taken the game from them. It was
sort of burst their bubble.
Absolutely, some majestic goal. I mean, there was another pass in. I'm jumping ahead again. In another game we'll cover, but there was a pass in another. I think it was the Australia Denmark game, which this was going to be like pass of a tournament. Unfortunately, Mary Fowler was taken on. But this was a brilliant pass and a brilliant goal, just a brilliant artistic goal from Japan. It was so simple, so devastating. And yeah, from that moment, Norway were cooked. And that for me, that was sort of Japanese football at its best. That's what we saw against Spain and Zambia. Just simple football, but played so well.
Absolutely, Matt. What a strike and what a break from Fujino. My young player of the tournament is got to be Hinata Miyazawa. She's now scored 5 goals. Is the Golden Boot race on for her now, or is someone going to catch her? Because there's a fair few players on 4 goals now. Do you think she could do it?
She could. And you know what? Now that you mentioned it, I'm glad I can bring up this stat, because I did bring it up when I was hosting. That she had the chance.
Matt is back in the room, ladies and gentlemen.
Matt, what's that?
She could equal the record for Sawara, even, apologies, which was a record of 5 goals at a World Cup tournament. She needs one more goal to break that now. And for those that don't know, Sawa is a legend in Japanese football. She is essentially their martyr. But I believe she retired 20 was it the previous tournament, Adam?
I don't know. I've heard this player.
I'm guesstimating. I'm guesstimating here. So if I am wrong, completely understand. Correct me in the comments, or just tell me off on socials. Either way.
Don't worry, we will.
It's a great strike, and if I'm honest, I think there's going to be some great players up there for the player of the tournament. If she doesn't get player of the tournament, she's going to be in with a shout for goal of the tournament at the very least, because some of her efforts have been fantastic.
We should just look at, I'm just going to say on the top scorers front, there are 3 other players with 4 goals, and one of them, Pop, is obviously has gone home already. So it's basically Gianni and Jill Rord in the running on 4 goals. So there's players who can still catch her.
Absolutely. I think this is the ultimate question. We've talked about this so much over the podcast, but are Hege Riis's days numbered with Norway?
Yes.
No,
Simple
honestly,
answer. Love it.
I am all for this, and this is nothing against. I'm not trying to make it personal. This is purely professional.
Mm-hmm.
She came in for England, and then Team GB at the Olympics, and we saw how her management style, shall we say, was, and how it alienated certain players. How her tactically, I think she was shown a bit at that Olympics, which was basically an advanced form of just give the ball to Ellen White and hope she scores. But there were some rather bizarre picks there as well. She went over to Norway, and I think she simply went to Norway on the became Norway boss simply on the merit of, I won a World Cup. Remember in '95? Remember that? I was a key player. That means I'm a good manager. Can I have the manager's job, please? And I just don't think she's a football manager. I don't think she can manage at this level. And we've seen fallouts with players. There's been, after the 0-0, Switzerland, I think it was the 0-0 draw. There was a some players had some choice words, shall we say, after the game.
Caroline
Graham Hansen.
Yep.
If you look at other teams, we've not seen that with, say, the Serena Wiegman, we having the players protest, making comments like that against her when things have been a bit ropey. So that shows that there is a disharmony there. Problem is with Norway is that's 2 tournaments in a row. They've very badly underperformed given the talent they have. I mean, we spoke about Switzerland where it's just it's Leah Volti and Ramona Bachmann maybe and was it Sotskronovic, but then there's a drop off elsewhere. That Norway team is loaded. There is so much talent in that side. They shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. They should be making, I would say, quarterfinals at least in tournaments. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that they're going out in group stages in the Euros, losing 8-0 to England, or they're only winning 1 game at a World Cup, and that was against the Philippines, and couldn't score, struggled to score a goal, couldn't beat, New Zealand. Given, I know it's home advantage in its opening game, but you still couldn't beat New Zealand, and strange tactical decisions of Jonsson and Mornham on the bench. I think, if Norway have any ambition with their women's team, want them to win another World Cup, I think they have to look at their manager and think, right, who's the best manager? Because I don't think it's Hege Riise. And I think, they should. But whether they will, I think they should, she should move on. But when it comes to these things, I wouldn't be surprised if she was at the Euros next year, quite frankly, or at the Olympics.
If she ends up carrying on, I will be scared for Norway, because I have a feeling what will happen is there'll be a player riot. Similar to what happened with France, similar to what happened to a few other countries that have boycotted, and sometimes it's happened, sometimes it hasn't gone their way. Again, it's similar to Switzerland. I would be having kind of a conversation with the FA, the manager, and the players themselves to figure out what's the best for the situation. Obviously, with everything that's gone on, I have a feeling that Riise is definitely going. I've mentioned previously as well, that not always the best players in the world make great coaches. It's been proven that sometimes the best players in the world, or the worst players that you don't really hear of, like Serena Wiegman, has then become able to be this best coach. You look at some of the players now that probably coming towards their end of the twilight years, they're probably considering what they're going to do in the next couple of years. I don't think Jen Beattie's going to be definitely going to be a coach. Maybe she may take on a mentor role, but she won't do that. She's probably more likely going to be a pundit. You look at someone like Kim Little at the moment, going around the similar route. Again, if you look at top quality players at the moment, do you see the Sam Kerrs, I'm trying to think of another captain. Any top player in the world that's in that Ballon d'Or, do you see them potentially being a coach one day for their national side, or even just at manager level?
I could see, for example, Kelly Smith, for example, she's not a manager, but she's doing coaching work at Arsenal. And I think from that perspective, it can work quite well. If you look at the men's team, I think there is arrogance with certain ex-players. They think they can just walk into management based on their reputation. alone, looking at, say, Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, think that, well, I was a really good player, therefore, management will be a piece of cake. I just, impart all the wisdom and knowledge I have for the past. As it turns out, in both cases, X does not equal Y. I think, and also works also with, I'll say X male footballers think I can downshift into women's football management as well. And as England fans, we've shown that that doesn't necessarily happen, work either. So I do have. The thing is you are right. I think there is a correlation with, say, the less of the player, and this is not just disrespect to the player, because the less of the player, the better the manager. And I think there's no better example than Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta he was a good player, but he wasn't like a Ballon d'Or winning player. But he's doing great things at Arsenal. Compare that to, say, Thierry Henry, who is one of the best strikers Arsenal's probably ever had. But he had to go at management. I think it was in Monaco, and it went terribly for him. So it does work. I think there is an element of that. I think there is an inverse correlation between player quality and manager quality. I do wonder who, if they were to move Hege Riis, who Norway would actually go for. Women's football management is a murkier pool, so we say, than men's football. There's always someone on the conveyor belt, a big Sam, or to come on and wade in and throw the hat in the ring. But with women's football, every time a manager's announced, it's always a bit of an unknown.
I think this is the second time Hege Riis has taken over as well. She took over in 2012, and then that led to Hegerberg leaving originally, from what I remember reading, because I wasn't watching that at that sort of time. But it just goes to show she isn't a good manager if she's not getting the players on side. You look at someone like Serena, it's almost like a sisterhood. Whereas you look at Norway's side, the Switzerland side, Norway's more chaotic than Switzerland at the moment. And what would you rather fancy? Would you rather fancy the Switzerland job, or would you rather fancy the Norway job at the moment? I think, if I'm honest, I'd rather have the Switzerland job.
It's a good question. Switzerland is very calm and serene, but it's a lesser team in internal quality. Norway, there is so much potential there. But I think you're right. It's very volatile and very political, and there's a lot of expectation around it. And if you can't get those chemicals to stabilise, then you end up going out in the last 16 to Japan. We shouldn't focus so much on Norway, because I think with Japan, I'm really excited with Japan. For some reason, I don't think they're going to win it. I just think they're going to come up against a team that is able to neutralise the amazing attacking they've got. Because so far with these games, they've had it all their own way. They've been able to play their way and they've won. But what happens if we look at England, a team comes along and neutralises them, stops them being themselves? Can they still overcome and win? Can they go 0-0 and win on penalties? That's what I'm most intrigued by. And I think that we'll get onto who they're coming up to later. If they play someone that neutralises their seemingly imperious passing and attacking, I do wonder if they'll come a cropper.
If I'm being honest, if Japan do go all the way, I don't think anyone can turn around and say, no, that's not really deserving.
Oh, they would deserve it. They would 100%. I wouldn't begrudge them the win if they were to win, unless they beat England in the final. But the way they are playing football, they're
one game at a time.
Well, exactly. But I'm not going to say there's rights and wrong ways to play football, but they're playing on the right way of playing football. But they're playing a brand of football that you would want to watch as a neutral. I could happily watch Japan play football and move the ball elegantly, ruthlessly, and they're playing to attack and to win. They're not. A lot of these teams, especially teams who have the politest way, are lesser funded than others. It's very much low block defensive. We're gonna play for the set pieces. We're gonna cancel. We're gonna hold out. Japan up. No, we're gonna play our way. We're gonna outplay you. We're gonna outfox you. Spain, we'll beat you 4-0. No worries. We'll just ping you on the counter. Zambia, we'll demolish you 5-0, and we'll just keep going. They are so positive in the way they play, and I think that is to be commended. And I hope it takes them very far into a tournament.
Just a quick question, sorry, before we finish. Would you take Japan into the Arnold Clark Cup next year, just to see how we can cope?
Absolutely.
I would love to go to, I don't know, Stadium MK or the Academy or wherever the game will be, Ricoh Arena, and watch England versus Japan, which is weird actually. This is the first World Cup since 1995 that England haven't actually played Japan. And yet, I think the only way we can play them is if we both get to the final. So either the hoodoo shall remain, and we get to a World Cup final, or it gets broken. That's going to be, if we end up playing Japan in this World Cup, and that would be very, very special.
Absolutely, and that is it for our Japan and Norway game. We will be back with our final third with the Netherlands and South Africa just after this break.
That's better. She just closed her eyes a little bit there, but what a great ball in.
Now Jill Scott might think about going for goal. Does think about it. Jill Scott gives England the lead.
And we're back again. Netherlands and South Africa was our other game on Sunday morning. Well, depending on how where you are in the world, it was early hours of Sunday morning for us, or late Saturday night, however you want to refer it to. But it was Netherlands vs South Africa. Netherlands won 2-0. First goal came in from a set piece taken by Sherida Spitzer into Laika Martins with a header into the box, which absolutely caused chaos at the back. And then an unmarked Jill Roord makes the header at a close range to the bottom left corner, making it her fourth goal of the tournament.
Yeah.
Matt, what are your thoughts on Jill Roord's performance so far?
It's almost like she's back at Arsenal towards the end of her stay there, where she basically just went, you know what, sod it, I'm going to score as many goals as possible throughout the season and just go from there. And it was nice to see that. That was kind of the Jill Roord that I was hoping to see in an Arsenal shirt, but unfortunately she decided to leave for Wolfsburg, and now she's decided to haunt us for the last 2 seasons.
She's coming to haunt you on a regular basis now in the WSL.
She's Man City star signing, Jill Roord.
We will wait and see though, because we know what Man City are like. But that's nothing against Man City. That's against Gareth Taylor. I mean, a lot of City fans do not like their Welsh manager. I do apologise. Lottie is laughing right now, but Jill Roord being in the right place at the right time with a header. You know what? I do think it's kind of odd, really, considering Jill Roord's one of the tallest players in the Netherlands. She's not usually one that gets goals with her head. And I think she just decided, you know what, striker's instinct, just get on the end of it, nod it home. 1-0, we're nearly there. And I think she's feeling a little bit more confident this time around.
I think there's a credit to Jonker. He's clearly managed to get the best out of her. There was always a bit of a conundrum because you had Jill Roord, who was almost like an attacking, I say 8/10, but you also had a Van der Donk in there as well. And so many of us look at how do you play her in the position. We had this with Arsenal. We had Jill Roord, we had Jordan Nobbs, Van der Donk, Kim Little, so congested, and players were shunted out onto wings to accommodate, and it was all a bit of a mess. And the only thing really Arsenal I remember Jill Roord for was the double hat trick against Reading and West Ham, and I thought, excellent, we've got a player now, and then she just disappeared for the rest of the season, and we never saw her again. And then I think maybe she got like a hat trick in one of those last late 2 FA Cup games because of COVID. It was all scrambled. I mean, I don't remember Roord's season, 2 seasons fondly really in Arsenal. I think she was very much she was a young up and coming player with a lot of potential and height that we never really saw for one reason or another. And obviously now she came to Man City. Fair enough in this tournament, it's clearly clicked for her. Got a very crucial goal against the US and got them up and running here. I would say it's as close as an XG1 goal you're going to get, because it was pretty much a header on the goal line. I mean, it would have been incredible if she'd missed it, but she was there. She had anticipation, got the Netherlands in front early doors, which is what you need when you're playing against a team where you are expecting to South Africa were the underdogs in this situation, which is pretty much obvious. But just because you are anticipating when doesn't make it easy, as England showed, and getting the early goal and getting the place in was absolutely vital. And fair play to Roord. She's having an amazing tournament. Second highest top scorer on 4 goals, and I think she'll be hoping for more. And got Netherlands on their way. It was a nice early start for you, thinking, right, we'll kick on and just like with Vietnam, we'll motor away. But I think, as we discussed, it wasn't that easy.
Absolutely not, Adam. I'm glad you mentioned it. within those 3 minutes, just after Giroud has scored her opening goal, we had Thembi Catalana take a right-footed shot from the difficult angle on the right, but it went too high. Her and another mid did actually get away through acres of space, which was a mistake by the Dutch. As an African team as a whole, I feel it's not just South Africa. This is looking at Nigeria and what's the other team?
Morocco.
Well, not so much Morocco. It's more Nigeria. I feel like they're branded as physical playing teams. I think throughout this game, they've showed their technical ability and their skill sets that they do bring to their game. Do you think we stereotype too much, Matt?
I think if you're thinking on a club level, kind of, if you were to look for a South African, you're probably looking at maybe a centre back to like. It's not like I don't want to say stereotyping too much, but it's just you're looking for certain traits in certain players. But it's nice that you've got as African teams being able to be up there with some of the technically best in the world. Essentially, the 32 teams are there for a reason. Of those 32, there's over 700 players in there. They've got to be gifted somehow to be given that the space in those 23 spaces in that one team. And if I had to pick out two players that stood out for me, Maguire and Catalana both played really well for South Africa. They were technically gifted. They were basically telepathic throughout their time in the tournament, and they were very, very talented. They're very, very good at getting into those tight spaces and making sure that they could get through. That was basically how they got out of their group, was a last-minute goal just to get them through. And it was a really brilliantly worked goal. And you're thinking, imagine if that was Spain, that would be up there with one of the best goals of the World Cup. Sorry.
I feel that South Africa, out of the African teams that got out the group, South Africa were definitely the most enterprising side. I mean, obviously Nigeria went out to England. They had 3-0 draws, and then managed to beat the host, which was an impressive result to beat the host. And they did them on the counter, played off defensive mistakes. But South Africa, we'll talk about Japan and the way they were sort of attacking and sort of going for it. South Africa were as well. The problem was defensively, they just were too suspect. They chucked leads in all 3 group games. They only won 1 game because obviously that last minute winner actually managed to salvage it. But they're the only team so far to have scored a goal against Sweden. And Sweden needed a late winner to actually overcome them. They scored against Argentina. They scored 3 against Italy, and they could easily have scored in this one as well. They weren't just a load of physical built players who are just going to barge people off the ball and but they were playing the game and playing it very well, and were quite unlucky that they came up against another DVD, Daphne von Domsela, who was amazingly. We knew she was good. I saw her at the Euros. I knew she was going to be said in this pod so many times. What a keeper she is. Aston Villa have done amazingly well to sign her up. So I cannot wait for WSL to see her in action, because I think she's going to elevate. There's going to be the quality of goalkeeping. I think it's going to be really, really good. But no, fair play to South Africa. I think they should have scored at least a goal. They deserve to get on the score sheet in this one. I've only seen the highlights through once. Obviously, the game was at 2-3 in the morning, so I wasn't able to watch it live. But from what I've seen in the highlights, South Africa had some really good chances and some really good saves in there. I mean, sadly, this is a game which is defined by two goalkeepers, as we'll get to. We had Van Domsela, who had a superb game to keep out South Africa. And then, sadly, in the case of South Africa, it was sort of defined by Sparks, as I'm sure we'll get to.
No, absolutely. I'm sure Adam's had a peek at my notes for today's agenda over my shoulder somewhere.
No,
it's actually quite scary. But we're gonna skip my next theory. So we're gonna move on to the 54th minute. Linus Beristain cuts onto the inside of box, finds Victoria Pelova, but the flag stays down. Then the ball ends up with Leica Martins and the net ripples. Matt, was the VAR call correct after waiting for the goal to go in? Or should it have come up when the ball got to Victoria Pelova?
This is one of those silly rules, isn't it, that we've seen over the last... It does annoy me when it happens, because usually when it happens to Stina. I got lost laughing, but nothing against Stina.
It's such a Stina thing to do. That's what I'm having. We don't want Vic Pelova picking it up and bringing it home. That's for sure.
This is one of those things, though, isn't it? If it happens to Stina, as soon as she scores, she sort of checks the linesman first before she celebrates, because that's what she's starting to learn now. But it kind of feels a bit unfair to do that. You've got semi-automated offsides, and this is what they're supposed to be used for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on this exception, VAR has intervened, but it needed to be quicker. It couldn't be just like, oh yeah, Victoria Pelova, you're offside, and we're going to call it back as soon as that ball goes in the back of the net. What if it had been blazed over the bar? What if it'd gone out for a throw in? What if it'd gone out for a corner? There's so many what ifs to the situation. That what do you give in that situation? Do you just turn around and just give the offside, or it's just causing more chaos than it needs to?
So delayed offsides, I'm actually all for. For the simple logic is that there's nothing. I remember there's been times I've seen when players have run through and the flag's gone up before they've scored, and you go to the replay and it's like, well, they were a mile onside. That's unfair, and it gives you the chance to review because the ball's gone dead. Now the actual controversy is when the ball goes out for a corner, because if they haven't called an offside and the keeper says it goes for a corner, VAR won't intervene and have a look. So technically that can happen. But with the semi-automated offsides, that is where I'm a bit sort of confused on, because my interpretation of it was that it would be like an automatic goal line technology system. The moment the player is offside, then you can call it. What it seems to be instead is that it's used at the point of VAR intervention. So the play happens, and then they'll analyse and check and see, was it offside? Now, in this instance, it feels like there's been a bit of a robbery, but the way it works best is when the flag does go up, calls it offside, and then the VAR reverts it backwards and finds it correct. That's VAR brilliant. And I think this then plays into the bias we have, which is, we've only come here to see goals being scored. We were more than happy for VAR to allow goals that were disallowed by offside, but we can't stand it when they disallow goals for offside that were on the pitch given. And that sort of, we're happy to take it, but we're not happy when VAR give it. And that's sort of a balance we sort of have to find. I didn't see it because it's on the highlights. I haven't seen the digital visual simulation line, whatever you call it. I haven't seen the digital on the TV cameras. That's always deceptive. It did look onside, but I probably got a poor camera angle. The goal got chalked off in the end, which is a shame for Leica Martins. But no, I find it really bizarre when you hear like co-commentators getting outraged over the outrage of this is outrageous. Flags should have gone up ages ago. I can't understand why you're doing it. And I'm thinking it's so obvious why they're doing it. And especially when you see a goal scored that gets chalked off offside and then VAR gives it. That's why, because for me, if I was a linesman, the rule should always be is you should flag not if you think it's offside, but if you believe there is a suspicion of offside. Because I think if you flag it offside the moment the ball hits the net and VAR looks and it was offside, nobody will care. If VAR looks and it was onside, people will care. The frustration is when the linesman doesn't flag at all, and that's actually a failure of the linesman. That's not a failure of VAR. That's just poor linesman not spotting it. I'd rather linesman be overzealous and give offside than not give it at all.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I need to take that tip into the new season. When Stina scores, check the linesman before you go absolutely radio rental.
Especially when they play Wolfsburg.
Oh
exactly.
My God, my heart in my hands. Just
yeah.
Let's just not go there. No one wants to see
football,
that. No one wants to see.
14 minutes later, like a Martins with an early ball through to Lynette Beerstein. Outpaces Noko Matslu with a left-footed shot outside the box into the centre of goal. Matt, as you're part of the goalkeepers union, was this a mistake from Kaylin Swartz? That goal was just—it was mad. It was just Lynette had all that space. The strike, surely she should have got to it.
Yes, but also no, because if you've given someone so much space, you kind of have to. It falls upon your goalkeeper to tell your defenders who to mark, or if there's someone behind you, or if there's space, you need to sort of tell them to move over, or someone's come in and say, look, there's a player on the back post here, or there's this number of whatever has got so much time on them. It feels a bit bad, really, to say that, but Bernstein is a great player. We've seen, me and Adam have actually seen her live during the Euros. I'll go back to that. To be honest, I thought she could have been quite easily one of the players of the young player of the tournament for that, because she did really well in that for the Netherlands. But unfortunately, due to them not making it to the semi-finals, semi-finals, she didn't get that opportunity. But it's sort of a hit and miss, really, because you kind of needs everyone to be focused on that point. I think it shows there's a lot that South Africa have to learn.
Yes.
I don't think South Africa are professional outfits just yet, but things that they can take away from this game is they only lost 2-0, and the fact that they've got a lot more experience, and a lot of people in South Africa would be looking at and going, wow, imagine 13 years on from the last World Cup, that our women are at another World Cup and have got into a quarterfinals, is huge. I mean, there's an opportunity now for them to hold the next World Cup, which means that we could be seeing something special on hold for the next 4 years. So,
bringing Vuvuzelas back.
Absolutely.
It was a bit of a gaffe by the keeper, but I think the problem was in her situation is I think she was thinking 2 moves ahead, like in chess. And I think in her mind, she probably already caught the ball. It was the whole technique was wrong. It was she hadn't moved the body right. She wasn't behind the ball. I think maybe she just lapsed, just lost the concentration. And it's professional, it's standards, and it's something they'll learn from. Interestingly, South Africa conceded 2 goals in every game they played in that World Cup, which I think shows just defensively they just simply weren't sound enough. They had plenty of threat and attack, plenty of goals, but they were so suspect at the back. They were always going to struggle. And Netherlands rode their luck, but when you're defensively suspect like that, you've got no chance.
Absolutely. Since you both have been spying on my agenda for this evening, I'm going to go into my final question, and I'm going to fire this at Adam first.
Oh no!
Have the Netherlands been tested properly yet, or will Spain run them absolutely ragged?
I think Spain is going to be the big test for the Netherlands. We would have thought the USA would have been that test, and I think we should credit to you. This is not a. I'll get to USA obviously later today, but the USA aren't a terrible team, and I think getting a 1-1 draw with them, fair play to them. I think that was a good test for them. But if you look at the rest of the team, Portugal, very defensive. Vietnam, that's not a test at all. Sorry, Vietnam. I would say probably there's an element of maybe underperformance subtly against other teams. I think against Portugal, I think they could have been better. Against South Africa, I think they could have been better. I think with Vietnam, they were the team that everybody batted in the group. USA was probably their best performance, I would say, and they obviously got a 1-1 draw of it. I'm really intrigued to see Everliners against Spain. I have been surprised that Spain have actually looked relatively competent in this tournament, all things considered, Japan game aside. But I just feel there is also an element of a ticking time bomb there. I think that's a fascinating game that none of us are watching because of the way that the schedules are turned out, and it's at 2 in the morning. I think this will be the biggest test for this Netherlands side so far. If they beat Spain, they have every right to call themselves genuine contenders for the World Cup.
I have to agree there, mainly because the time zone thing hasn't worked out for the US.
No,
but I actually do feel sorry for the Orange women fans, because they've had to get up at awkward times at all sorts of times, just for their games. It's just been a bit unfair to them, and whereas we've been a bit lucky really with our timings. But honestly, I'm looking forward to their next game, and I hope. I have a feeling it's going to be a tight game. I have a feeling it might be a game of 1-0s, or it might end up being penalty shootout.
We love penalty shootouts, don't we?
Oh, please no more penalty shootouts. Don't do this to me. You
Okay,
boys.
No, okay, I'll take the last minute of the 120 minutes. Like,
Actually, do you know what? I don't actually mind for this game because I'm not getting up at 2 a.m. to watch this, so
I'm
it could be
looking forward to the
penalties.
highlights.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to waking up and seeing what the result was.
One thing that has annoyed me, sorry, just on the highlights. If you go back, not all the highlights that they play in, so if it goes to penalties, they're not playing all the entire of the penalty kicks, and that's been frustrating.
Yeah, I've got to give it to the BBC though. They did put all of the USA ones, which we will get into on the next pod. Unfortunately, this is all we can do for this episode because there's so much going on in the next 4 games. We will be back tomorrow with another episode with the remaining games. Another really quick announcement. We have got our own Twitter page. We are now the VAW pod on Twitter. So come and drop us a follow. We will follow back. You can always find me at Lottie AWFC. You can always find Adam at AdamSalter4. And Matt, we can always find you at Matt LR26.
28.
28. I was close enough.
Close.
Damn it. So if you come and drop us a follow, if you want to come and guest on the show, you're more than welcome to. But for now, we will see you next time.